Hey, it's Monday. We're live again. This is the second week of hashtag Malkin Live. I've been kind of dormant using live streaming, and I thought it would be really important to use the platforms while I still have them to hammer away at themes that are getting short-circuited, shortchanged in most of the corporate media. So last week, we focused every single day on hashtag expand the ban, immigration moratorium issues, America First. We had some awesome guests, people who've been advocating and reporting on immigration policy issues, who are really critical. I mean, these are voices who should be on Fox News every night. They're not, so they were on my show. Well, this week, I was prompted by a tweet that appeared on the feed of President Trump. Lo and behold, I think it was 5:50 in the morning, my time, Mountain Time, and my phone just started blowing up with texts from people telling me to go look. And well, there it was. I don't know how to do a share screen thing, so I'm just going to read it. And a lot of you who are tuning in actually already saw it, but Donald Trump had tweeted, "The radical left is in total command and control of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Google. Yeah. The administration is working to remedy this illegal situation." Oh, we've heard that before. "Stay tuned, and send names and events. Thank you, Michelle." And Michelle was me. And what was really remarkable is that President Trump retweeted an account called AF Clips, which clips some classic and must read and must watch and must listen to speeches and excerpts from the America First show, which is hosted by Nick Fuentes. So it was really amazing to watch it in real time. At one point, the clip had close to 1 million views on it. And there was some weirdo, funny stuff that went on. It was, you could watch it, you couldn't watch it. It was restored. Who knows what happened? But we do know for sure that close to 1 million people tuned into that clip. And I mean, I think, we can't even estimate how many people actually clicked through to the AF Clips YouTube page, which you can still access. And of course, the host of America First, Nick Fuentes, is no longer able to post on YouTube. So when President Trump invited me and other people to send names and cases, of course, it struck me that it would be a very good idea to actually talk to Nick Fuentes. And he is with me today. Hey, Nick, good to see you.
Hello, Michelle. Yes, good to see you. Good to be with you.
Well, I'm trying to not be boomer tech here. So this is my second week of doing this streaming. And of course, you're an old pro at this. One thing is that your hair is looking a little long.
Yeah. I think we're all getting a little shaggy here. I'm in Illinois, so we don't get to get a haircut until June. I still got another 2 weeks.
I get to see my hairstylist on Friday. Colorado's been, a little bit more forgiving and solicitous of businesses. But I was going to wear this. Look at this. This just came in the mail.
Oh, very nice.
You see that?
I like that.
To cover my roots. But
no, that's a good look.
Thank you. And I know this is very triggering for a lot of people. So I should, if I wasn't wearing the headphones, I would wear it. But I wear it I wore it this weekend when I was playing pickleball. So
very good. Okay. Pickleball. That's a good one.
So you got pickleball AFers. What did you think of this when you heard about this tweet on Saturday?
I couldn't believe it. I actually woke up pretty late because I had a late night the evening before. But when I woke up, I honestly was shocked that the president retweeted that Clips channel and retweeted you, moreover, because, of course, you know that we have been canceled by Con Inc. and by the conservative establishment. I mean, it's bad enough that we've been canceled by the left, you much longer than me, but then to be canceled by the right, I assume that kind of exposure, that kind of legitimization would just, be outside of the bounds, especially with President Trump. In as much as I love the president and I support him, I think that on the tech censorship issue, he's kind of been missing. Recently we heard about this DOJ lawsuit against Google, and that's really the first we've heard about tech censorship in something like a year since that big Facebook purge happened, I think last May, with Milo and Laura Loomer and Paul Joseph Watson and a few others. And so the acknowledgement not only of the tech censorship issue, but also of us, we really are the banned. I don't think it's people like Ben Shapiro that are getting banned. It's people like us. I was honestly floored that it happened and very excited because I think that legitimizes the struggle that we're in. And it really is a shared struggle for all conservatives and Trump supporters. A lot of people think that it's only the fringes that they're coming for. Some people don't even know what's happening at all. But of course, the president talking about his keyboard warriors the other day, I think it was nice that he spoke up this weekend and said, that he's going to take some action. So I thought it was amazing.
Yeah. And when he tweeted about the keyboard warriors, I noticed that you had replied in that thread and reminded him that, hey, his biggest supporters are being pushed off these platforms. You're still on Twitter, and so am I for some reason. But, I've been shadow banned I think I was one of the canaries in the coal mine. I mean, my suspicion is that for me, it's been at least 8 or 9 years, and whatever algorithms that they use now on literally a daily basis against immigration hawks, pro-lifers, dissidents on, all sorts of America First and social conservative issues, that it started back then. And it started with suppression of follower counts. It started with suppression of the ability of leading conservative influencers from a decade ago to be able to surface hashtags just organically. Like unlike a lot of these con Inc. organizations now, they pay for followers, right? It's all, and they pay all sorts of social media type minions to engineer hashtags, right? But in the old days, anybody could do it. And that annoyed a lot of people in Silicon Valley, conservative establishment, Hollywood, the whole thing. And you're right about President Trump. And a lot of us are frustrated about this. And it's always difficult because you want to be friendly in your constructive criticism. But I just, I dug up the tweet from, it was last May. It's like he has this yearly sort of, yearly realization, oh, I better say something about that, right? So this is from May 3rd, 2019. It's like a year ago. And this is where the joke comes in, right? I'm continuing to monitor the censorship of American citizens on social media platforms. This is the United States of America, and we have what's known as, all capital letters, freedom of speech. We are monitoring and watching closely. Monitoring the situation.
It's heartbreaking.
So there's also been a couple of Senate Republicans, and we should name them, the ones that have tried to carry the ball legislatively. And I don't know, you followed Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz, who, they have their hearings, they get on Fox, they talk about Section 230. Is it your feeling that Trump could just do this by executive order?
Well, I think there's a lot of ways you could go about this. That's the thing about tech censorship, is there are so many angles that you can look at it from. And I think there's actually some things happening concurrently right now. There's the DOJ lawsuit. The state attorney generals will file lawsuits. There was talk of a Federal Trade Commission investigation on the grounds of antitrust. There's, of course, Section 230. I think even right now there's a investigation being conducted by the House Judiciary Committee. So there's a lot of ways that you could go about this. There were rumors that I heard that there was an executive order on the president's desk the first year that he got in office to address tech censorship. And I'm not a legal expert on what can be done, but all that we're asking is that something can be initiated, because the problem is that this is something that is ongoing, and it's been ongoing for 5 years, where just about every day, every week, every month, you're seeing not just huge influencers being banned, people like just the other day, Joey Salads. I'm not the biggest fan of Joey Salads, but I think he's one of the most recent examples. 500,000 followers down the drain one day because he was replying to too many tweets, I think, something like that. There was another big account, a person I met before, Education for Liberals. Again, I think maybe we're different strains of conservative, but I think he had something like 500,000 followers, totally banned, not a legitimate reason given. And it's not just the big influencers, but it's also all the followers themselves and all the supporters. It's also just tiny accounts or medium-sized accounts that are just, MAGA Susan, or, whatever, just regular.
1776.
Right. Yeah. 3-star emojis and, dragon energy. And you see those people getting banned by the thousands all the time. And so really there's this dire urgency that the longer it takes to even initiate some of these actions, the more people are erased, the more people are gone. And this is critical if you have a long-term plan for the Republican Party or for conservatism, because politics increasingly is being conducted online, not just elections, but the conversation, fundraising, all of it. But also you have an election year this year. So the longer that we delay, whatever it's going to be, even if it's an executive order, and let's say a federal judge issues an injunction, or let's say, somebody finds that that's not under the president's jurisdiction. They do that with everything, whatever. But if you get the ball rolling on that and get the conversation going, or even just press it in Congress, which is, I think, achievable, then I think we could start to at least halt or create some kind of deterrent for this effect and maybe begin to turn it around. But, I think, like you said, we've seen this just sort of annual or cyclical acknowledgement, this sort of perfunctory, well, I'm just keeping an eye on things, making sure that everything's okay with tech censorship. And it's nice that he acknowledges, I get excited every year when he acknowledges it. But, the problem is that people like myself, people like you, people like everybody we know, every day it's a question of, are we going to wake up and see everything that we spent years building up, that following, that influence, that reach, that exposure, which carries a lot of significance for the president and for Republicans and conservative principles in general. We face that question of, are we going to wake up and see that all gone one morning and the rug totally pulled out from under us? And that, I think, hurts everybody, and not just me and you and our livelihoods, although it does, but it also hurts the future of conservatism in America. We will not be players in American politics if we're not online, because we can't get on Fox, right? Obviously. Increasingly, radio and print are going out of business. And even in those cases, they're getting increasingly prone to censorship. So what are our options at that point? We'll have to be stuffing mailboxes. I'll have to go door to door, with a little notebook or a pamphlet or something. And that's it. Yeah. So he's got to do something.
Yeah. So for viewers who might not know the background of your own banning, can you just give a Cliff Notes version of when you founded your channel, how much you built up, and then that moment which you had anticipated that they were going to pull the plug?
Sure. So I started my YouTube channel in August 2017. My YouTube channel was banned in February 2020, so 3 months ago. And I have to tell you that I didn't have any problems on YouTube for years. Like I said, I started in August 2017, and it wasn't until January, late December, early January of this year that I actually even got my first strike on my channel, which is like a community guidelines violation. They reprimanded me for hate speech or, whatever. And up until that point, I had gone, what would that be? 2 years, 2.25 years with no interference, no problems. What happens with YouTube is they turn up the heat and they intensify the rules or the community guidelines, the terms of service every so many months, so that increasingly it becomes impossible to make any kind of political content at all. They started out with saying, well, you can't advocate for violence. And then it was, well, now it can't be hate speech. Well, now you can't make fun of people for how they look. Now you can't do conspiracy theories. Now you can't spread fake news. And you get to the point where by December 2019, they did a big TOS update where it's like, you honestly can't be a right-wing content creator on YouTube without caving on some of the big issues, particularly social issues, but also some other things. So I got my first strike in January. I got my second strike, I think, later that month. And then the third strike came in February, and it all came crashing down. And it was for something like hate speech or something like that. They actually did it in a really obnoxious way. They went through and actually flagged videos that I had deleted. I went through and I deleted all my videos in December, anticipating that I might get flagged or something like that. And they went through and they actually flagged 2 or 3 videos that had actually already been deleted. And because I deleted them, then I couldn't go in and submit an appeal and say, you need to take a look at this. So they can flag it if it's deleted, but you can't appeal it if it's deleted. So that was a story. I built up 77,000 subscribers, and then I woke up on Valentine's Day, sadly. Yeah, February. Heartbreaking.
Yeah, right.
February 14th, all the hard work down the drain, and that was my main source of income. Thankfully, I was able to recover on DLive, but I mean, that's devastating. And you only have, 4 major platforms, right? Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and then some say, TikTok or Reddit or whatever else, but those are the big ones. And you only have those four. If you have those four gone, I mean, good luck having a following. So
Yeah.
that's what happened to me.
So I wanted to drill in on the timing of your targeting. To what do you attribute that to? Because in this time period, of course, your sort of your public reputation and all the articles that were written in the wake of the Groyper Wars had sort of elevated you.
Right. Well, and that's just it. Like I said, I started the channel in 2017 and I had no problems up until December or January. And keep in mind, I wasn't a huge figure in 2017, but I was on the radar of the left. I was certainly on the radar of Right Wing Watch and Huffington Post and Daily Beast and all those publications. So I know that for however long that was, over 2 years, I was being flagged, I was being reported on by the left. They were writing hit pieces in all those different publications all throughout, for close to 2.5 years. But it wasn't until I challenged Con Inc., it wasn't until I challenged Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro and Dan Crenshaw and all those characters, and not in a way I don't believe that was totally disrespectful. I think in a way that was just about an inquiry into what conservatism has become. It wasn't until we started to cause problems for some of these connected people that suddenly I found my channel banned. Like I said, I went to, at that point, if August 2019 was 2 years since I started my channel, it wasn't until December, after the Groyper Wars, after we had gone to the Charlie Kirk Q&As, after Ben Shapiro, conveniently almost weeks afterwards, that then I got these 3 strikes in rapid succession. And I absolutely attribute that to the influence of Conservative Inc., because I've had all these major left-wing publications, mainstream ones too. I was in the Chicago Tribune, I was in Time, I was on the Today Show back in 2017. And, I had some, it's not like a flex, that's just to say I had some big press and a lot of unwanted attention from censors. But it wasn't until I antagonized the right, or these establishment elements on the right, that suddenly I had a big problem. And I think that's what we have to realize, is that the censorship is coming at America first people from both sides. A lot of people don't realize that. We know it's coming from the left. We understand that. But it's also coming from these influences on the right who don't want people to disrupt their monopoly on the conversation. They want the right wing to be free markets and foreign wars and free trade and all this stuff. And anybody, and maybe that's a colored characterization of what they're doing, but anybody that challenges that consensus and the mainstream on conservatism, they find that threatening. And that is their interest in why they want to censor people that are maybe heterodox or different views even on the right.
Yeah, and that certainly has been my experience over the last quarter century, that these dissidents who've been pushed off these platforms, and most recently there was an attempt to do that to me as well. It's not just the left, and the left would not be successful on its own without all of these establishment power figures on the right doing it. And so to underscore that point, and to fast forward past your banning from YouTube, just recently you got a suspended, or what happened to your account, merely for, what was it? You retweeted a Charlie Kirk TPUSA video critical of him?
Yes. Yeah. Charlie Kirk, has come out very recently in support of closing down immigration because of coronavirus. And he said, temporarily, we must shut down all these temporary work visas and we have to shut down all green cards. And I put in a reply to his tweet a few clips of him saying, just last fall, saying, well, America could take up to 50 million temporary workers in the next 10 years. 50 million? He said it could be unlimited. He said that we should staple green cards to diplomas. That's the famous phrase, of course. Now we should expand this F1 visa program, and we should just give a green card to every foreign student that graduates from an American university. And so I replied to his tweet saying, that's really nice that you're in favor of an immigration shutdown now when, 30 million unemployment claims have been filed and unemployment is 15% and whatever. But, just 4 months ago when unemployment was different and before the coronavirus, you were in favor of basically effectively unlimited immigration. And I had posted those clips back in October. And yeah, just this week, my account was locked it wasn't locked for a set amount of time, but it was locked and they made me delete those videos. He had filed copyright claims and said, this is copyrighted material from Turning Point USA, from my Culture War tour. You cannot repost them without my permission. And so my account was not locked once, but twice. And I didn't even post this is technical, but I didn't even post the video. I embedded the video from somebody else's tweet. So somebody else posted the video. I embedded it in the reply, and I got a DMCA claim filed, by the way, by Charlie Kirk himself. And you could see, because it's technically like a legal procedure, they email you the copyright claim. And in order to make a copyright claim, you have to do a digital signature.
I just inferred that it was him, but it really was him. That is so, let's see, what's an adjective? Deplorable and execrable. And I'm very familiar with these DMCA claims. For people who are not familiar, it's the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. And usually large corporate entities use it to try and stifle ordinary people's speech under the guise of intellectual property protection. Okay, so this happened to me more than a decade ago. UMG, which is a big music group, Universal Music Group, represented a rapper named Akon. I don't really like most rappers. I know you do, but and that's okay. But this guy had molested young women on stage. And so I had done like a little commentary on it, 5-minute commentary. UMG used its YouTube corporate partnership to try and crack down on me, and I challenged it successfully. But, so it's one thing to use that kind of bazooka if you're some left-wing, Hollywood entity. But Charlie Kirk, really abusing a law that is purportedly for intellectual property protection to stifle criticism from people that they've already tried to push off all of the platforms. And you're right, Nick, this is why it's so important that President Trump do something about this, because when you try to put that in replies to Charlie Kirk, there's 20, 30, 40, 50 other America Firsters, nationalists, groypers trying to link to actual evidence of Charlie Kirk's hypocrisy, and they're getting shadow banned too. I think the video, I can't remember, but the video that you embedded might have either been from some of these young people who have just created new accounts. Like there's this guy, Chief Trumpster, there's Columbia Bugle. There's a lot of really good people out there that are doing all this Oppo research and just putting it out. They're not inciting violence. It's not hate-filled. And it's Con Inc. that's trying to stifle it, not just the left. What do we do about that?
Well, that's exactly it. And, I think, exploring broadly anti-text censorship legislation or an executive order, whatever it is, I think that's going to solve the problem across the board. But I think with Con Inc., there has to be a little accountability. I mean, we expect that with the left, we're going to have to go to Congress and write a new law. We expect with the left that we're going to need the government to restrain them from being anti-free speech. And I mean, they're really just trying to kill conservatives. It's not even, it was at one time sort of amicable between conservatives and liberals. I'm 21, so I don't remember that time. I wasn't alive for that time. But, now they're trying to strangle us in the crib, with this no voter ID stuff and whatever. I mean, they will just do anything and everything to attain power. Point being is we expect that from the left. And we need the law to restrain the left so that we could have a fair playing field. But with conservatives, if they purport to believe in free speech, and they, by the way, are the loudest voices in the room about the free marketplace of ideas and the conversation, and we're going to say things that might not be politically incorrect. Well, if that's the case, then there has to be some consistency. And I think when it comes to them, there just has to be a demand for accountability. Look, if you're out there saying I'll debate anybody, anytime, anywhere, and I'm this free speech warrior and so on, then you should be expected to, at the very least, not be furthering the agenda of the left by DMCAing people, calling for people to be banned from Twitter. That happened with Sebastian Gorka right after Groyper War. He tagged Jack Dorsey on Twitter and tagged the Twitter support, account or whatever, and said, why does Nick Fuentes still have an account? How is this allowed on Twitter? Effectively calling for me to be banned. And it's to say, all these conservatives that support these people, they have to go into the replies and go to the Q&A and whatever and say, you're in favor of free speech. So why are you trying to censor America first? Why are you, by hook and by crook, by any means necessary, trying to stifle these people from voicing their opinions or critiques, however legitimate or even illegitimate. Why are you doing that? So when it comes to the broad issue, obviously I think legislation, whatnot, that'll solve it for everybody. But at least with Con Inc., I'm hoping there can be some reasoning, or maybe even reasoning with their supporters, and say, look, we're going to pull support if this is the kind of hypocrisy that we're going to see, because we expect this from the left, not from these guys. And I think a lot of conservatives are just simply ignorant of that. I think they just don't see what's going on, because a lot of people are not, like you and I, where they're on this stuff every day and they're, reading everything and, totally informed about the situation. A lot of people are very casual users of Twitter or social media for news. And so I think a lot of people just don't even know that this stuff is going on. Even at CPAC this year, I remember going around Washington, D.C., and I had so many people coming up to me, young people from Turning Point or from all these different groups, YAF, whatever. And they would say, I've heard a lot about you. What actually do you disagree with Charlie Kirk? What was that even all about? I mean, they don't even know. So it starts with knowledge, and then there has to be some accountability.
Absolutely. And, that's the thing is this sort of education component. It's really, I'm trying to figure out, see, this is live TV. How do I get that off there? What the heck? You see that? The lower
I do,
third?
yeah.
Get it off.
I thought you were playing me. I didn't see my screen. I thought that was going to say,
No.
like, in closing.
See, like, I wanted us to just, like, this is live TV. Like, I don't get it. How do I get that off? Like, how do I hide it? Where is it?
I don't know.
Anyway, Hunterama, look at that. I don't know what B is. I know what F is.
B for based, maybe.
Okay, B is for base. That's just going to stay there for now. If somebody in comments tells me what to do with that, B is for boomer tech.
That works too.
By the way, AFers and Groypers, they just make the best commenters. I know you and I were both in that dreadful Charlie Kirk, Will Chamberlain live chat, which, by the way, of course, Patrick Casey's D-Live stream of their stream had more...
Twice as many viewers.
Well, that just shows you where the energy and the movement is, and these con anchors don't want people to know that. And to that point, of course, after Trump tweeted this tweet, of course, the immediate paroxysms of outrage from all the usual suspects were published. You named them: Daily Beast, Huffington Post, Haaretz. I mean, they went after me, they went after you. And, I have experienced this in different gradations over the years. Dehumanization, mischaracterization of what we believe, the creation of these sort of monster cartoonish versions of who we are and what we stand for. And it's all towards one purpose, which is making people very afraid of actually reading what we write and listening to what we have to say. America First is available on D-Live every single night. What time do you broadcast?
7:30 Central Time.
7:30 Central Time, 5 days a week, right?
Yes.
And then your website. See, I wanted to put the banner on the website. Let's see if that replaces it. It's Nick J. Fuentes, right?
Yeah, nicholasjfuentes.com. It would be funny if it just overlapped and then we just had the whole screen filled up. Filled up with lower third graphics.
Okay, I can see memes already forming, but okay. Yes, look at that.
Yeah, there we go.
All right. And I'm not even charging for that. But again, I mean, and we can get into this if you want to, but the kinds of things that were said about both you and me over the fall, and the oversimplification of what your message is, and the kinds of things that Con Inc. pointed to and fed Jared Holt and each other, all of the synergy of all of this to try and create an environment in which neither of us would be able to continue or operate. They failed, obviously, but this is a big chance for you to address some of those things if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just it. During the Groyper Wars, what we sought to do was offer really a classical definition of conservatism. It was a challenge against mainstream conservatives on the basis of really kind of like three core components, which was foreign policy, immigration, and on social conservatism. And like you said, we were vilified, dehumanized, mischaracterized, everything you could say in the book. And I think that, the driving issues are things that broadly Americans agree with. When people say, what does America First stand for? If you ask Ben Shapiro, I mean, he literally said in a podcast, they're like paleo conservatives, but they're racist. Oh, okay. That's great.
Right.
Like Charlie Kirk and Benny Johnson, he's a Holocaust denier and they hate the state of Israel and all this. And it's very, very simple. I think it's something, every conservative agrees with. The starting premise is we need to put Americans first. What is America? It is Americans. It's not the government, obviously. It's not the economy. It's not big business. It's Americans. It's the American workers. It's the American people. It's the American middle class. It's you. It's your neighbors, right? And in order to put Americans first, you got to put Americans first on foreign policy, immigration, and on social policy. On foreign policy, very simply, why are we fighting other countries' wars? Why are we giving our taxpayer money to other countries? That's not America first. And the problem with Con Inc. is I think a lot of them even acknowledge that, except for with some exceptions, notable exceptions in the Middle East, which include Israel, Saudi Arabia, the UAE. The one they don't want to talk about is Israel. But generally speaking, I think an America first foreign policy applies across the board, not just to that one country. That's the one country that they don't want to talk about, but it's America first overall. And I think everybody agrees with that. I think on the right and the left, after 20 years of war in Afghanistan, war in Iraq, war in Syria, war in Yemen, war in Somalia, time to bring all that back home. On immigration, we want no more immigration. Immigration is not good for workers. Immigration is not good for neighborhoods. It's not good for schools. It's not good for employers. Everybody knows this. Everybody sees this. Charlie Kirk and the gang, they like to say, well, it's illegal immigration that's the problem. It's line cutters, fence jumpers. But as long as you come legally, that's okay. Even the president says that sometimes. But of course, the more legal immigration you have, the more that cuts wages. The bigger the pool of labor, the more that you get of something, the less people are willing to pay for it. That applies to labor. The more labor there is in the economy, the less employers are going to pay for it, lower wages, right? But not only that, it's low skilled, it's high skilled. Not only that, but they're coming into these neighborhoods and everybody can see this, completely changing the texture of life. If you look at some of these schools in Chicago and Los Angeles and New York City, they don't even speak English anymore. These are the legal immigrants. And you got a lot of Hispanics coming in, a lot of Asians, but we know that they're changing the composition of the country irreversibly. That's not putting America first. That's putting immigrants first. And then lastly, when it comes to social conservatism, we as conservatives, I thought were Christians. I thought that's what being conservative meant, being a Christian, being in favor of the family. And when we say the family, we don't mean like, a guy and two other guys or like a girl and like, some weird arrangement. We're talking about one mother, one father, and their children. And we want policies that are benefiting that, helping that. And we don't want things promoted in the society that are detrimental to that. And that means drugs, that means pornography, that means transsexuality, homosexuality, gender ideology. We're not in favor of that. That doesn't mean it's going to be illegal. Well, in some cases, it might be illegal to distribute pornography, but we don't want to make it illegal for, if somebody wants to do something in their own home, whatever. But that's not what we're seeing today. We're seeing it in the Super Bowl. We're seeing it in parades. We're seeing it ubiquitously in public schools, in libraries, drag queen story hour. We're seeing it all over the internet, which is easily accessible, unrestricted by children all the time. And so we demand that there is some semblance of tradition when it comes to those issues in the country and Christian virtues. And people like Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro and all these other types, they seem to do nothing but promote endlessly, well, this person is trans, but they're a conservative. This person is gay, but they're in favor of low taxes. And I'm sorry, but I'm in favor of, maybe low taxes, but also the traditional family model for our country. That's what America First means. I think that's where 90% of the conservatives are in this country. Christianity, shutting down immigration. We've had too much. That is where most of the country is. I don't think there's been a poll or a referendum in the past 30 years where anybody has voted for more immigration, let alone conservatives, and putting America first on foreign policy. This is like the consensus of, maybe all of the country combined, not just conservatives, but maybe most Americans in general. And that's what we're about. But they try to make it about, well, one time you said this, And one time you said this, and we're going to take it out of context and mischaracterize it. Now you're a Holocaust-denying white nationalist neo-Nazi. Seriously?
Yeah.
These are the tactics that they use against Donald Trump. They're the tactics they use against you. They're the tactics that are used against the very people leveling those accusations against us. How many times has Ben Shapiro been called a neo-Nazi? But then he turns around and does a whole speech about how everybody's alt-right, you're racist, you're a Nazi, you're a white nationalist. So this is what we've been put through. And I know you've been doing this a lot longer than me. It's the same, it's the same situation with you for, much longer.
Well, I think it's so important for you to be able to sum up what you stand for and the kinds of themes that you hammer on your show every night, because these Con Inc. establishment operatives don't want, the mainstream of conservatives to tune in. They don't want those boomers' kids to be able to hear your message. And I know this is a little bit ancillary, but the whole thing with what happened to you in TikTok was also very instructive, right? Yep. I saw a video of you where you just sat there, said nothing, and you were still banned.
Yeah.
What the heck?
I know that. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
So, the problem is that you've got this extremist libertarian cabal. They run these nonprofits, these campus organizations like TPUSA and Young America's Foundation, which I worked for 17 years as a speaker on the lecture circuit. They are duping, I think it's fair to say that, they're duping a lot of their rank and file loyal donors who mostly get their news from Fox. As you say, they're not as sort of hyper attentive to what's actually happening on things like Twitter or Telegram. I mean, honestly, a lot of these people don't even know how to take photos with their smartphones. Okay. I know, because I have interacted with many of them. And so it's completely alien to them. And, I actually confronted Foster Freeze, who is the mega multi-million-dollar donor to TPUSA. In fact, he just earmarked a couple million more to TPUSA as some sort of pat on the back that they didn't get federal PPP money. I'm like, that's the least amount that you could do as a conservative organization. Why should you should be rewarded for that? Anyway, he had no idea that TPUSA and the types of people that are brand ambassadors there advocated for all sorts of social nihilism and liberal excess and libertarian excess. And he had no idea that the Koch brothers were largely underwriting all of these DACA dreamers. He's like, I don't know. And I actually believe him. I think that he was just completely clueless. But I mean, what is it? I mean, YAF has, I think, $23 million in assets, and TPUSA has a $22 million budget and growing. So, I mean, it's really on the very types of people who are being, fooled by these Charlie Kirk types and the Ben Shapiro types to take responsibility for your own money. I mean, you're wasting, you're for fiscal responsibility, and that's what you're putting your money into. And so that's why the Groyper Wars were so important. And that's why I think it's still important to talk about the aftermath of it now. I mean, you are clearly still living rent-free in the heads of many of these people, as are the, rank and file of your movement. So, the pandemic kind of knocked the wind a little bit out of kind of Groyper Wars 2 and campus events and whatnot. Can you say, or just, give some sort of indication of what lies ahead and people who are interested in knowing more about the movement and what they can do to help?
Yeah. So what we are working on this summer is we are building our own student organization called America First Students. Mm-hmm. I don't even know what Turning Point means. What does that even, Turning Point USA sort of epitomizes Con Inc. It's just sort of one of these like synergy type, corporate phrases. Turning Point. What is the Turning Point?
It's like a ballet studio.
Yeah. It sounds almost kind of sinister. Like Turning Point. What does that mean? So, we are America First Students. We're in favor of America First. And we launched one chapter on Kansas State University. Mm-hmm. Actually, the Turning Point chapter president, Jaden McNeil, former Turning Point president, he dissolved his chapter, about this, because, in protest of Turning Point, and then formed an America First Students chapter. So we're planning America First Students chapters all across the country. We're going to try and sort of relaunch it in the fall semester. We had a lot of plans for it this year, but then, of course, everybody got sent home after spring break. So,
Right.
couldn't really do a whole lot with that. But this fall, we're going to plan on launching a number of new chapters, the 20, if not in the fall, in the spring, depending on what these reopenings look like. But we're going to be very active on the campus. I'm going to try my best to do a college campus tour. And like I said, we'll see how the reopening goes. I was planning one for April or May of this year, but obviously, Corona. So we're going to try and hit the ground running in fall, and we'll see if we can get to some campuses and do some speeches. And then, of course, to find out more about the movement, about me, about the show, like you said earlier, I do my show Monday through Friday, 7:30 Central Time, 7:30 p.m. Central Time at dlive.tv/Nick J. Fuentes. My website is nicholasjfuentes.com, where you can find all my shows. And so that's what we have in store for this year.
Sounds fantastic. So boomers, get your grandkids to help you download the DLive app. I've even figured it out. Okay. And then you'll learn a whole new vocabulary, lemonginis, ninjaginis, the whole thing. Impress your grandkids and kids with all that. I actually know, Nick, a lot of us older folks who do tune into the show regularly. So, you've got a broad and diverse demographic tuning
I love
in.
that.
I did refuse to watch the TikTok things, only if it was only if I could access it on Twitter, because TikTok.
It's nefarious. Yeah, the China thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a good thing we got banned.
But what's really cool is that I think somebody put up the marathon 6-hour, whatever it was, a 10-hour session of the Zoom call with all of those TikTok influencers. And that was not only epic, but it was also very, very fascinating.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that was a real
stuff.
safari.
That's the word for it. It needs a soundtrack with National Geographic music, because there are all sorts of interesting characters there.
Yes.
But one of the reasons why I think it was definitely worth watching is because you're playing out the very conflict that we've had within the right, between the neocons, between the Cato libertarian types and actual traditionalist, nationalists, America Firsters, that's gone on since Phyllis Schlafly was talking about it, God bless her, 30, 40 years ago, since Pat Buchanan was, the lone warrior taking up the cause. And, you and your movement and your listeners and viewers are carrying on that banner. And yeah, I avow that. That's what I avow. That's what people are really disturbed by. And I hope that, with this, that more mainstream, normal type people will open their eyes and learn more from your show. So thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me. I had a great time.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I didn't even nag you about doing pull-ups and
the face pulls. I'm getting on that. We're doing some push-ups in quarantine.
All right,
sounds
good. Now, if only I can get Jaden to stop eating Taco Bell, then we'll be.
That's a lost cause.
All right. Take care. I'll talk to you later.
All right, sounds good. Talk soon.
All right, that was Nick J. Fuentes, and he is the first in our series this week, highlighting major influencers, conservative journalists, and other personalities who've been banned big time by Silicon Valley. I am answering the call and the invitation of President Trump to name names and let him know about cases of some of his biggest supporters who've been pushed off of YouTube and Facebook and Google, and many, of course, who are unable to even conduct financial business and do banking. So tomorrow, we're going to have Laura Loomer, who, as you all know, is the most banned woman on the internet across the planet. She is running for Congress, and it would actually be very helpful to have somebody in the swamp who would do what they say they're going to do when it comes to protecting free speech and fighting all of these Silicon Valley powers that be. That's tomorrow, so make sure to tune in. I'll give you a heads up on Twitter on when we're going to broadcast that. And then on Wednesday, we're going to have Gavin McInnes, my friend, the founder of the Proud Boys. Both he and Laura are waging legal battles against these entities. And that, I think, is so important because I respect and commend and support Those people who've been banned, I call them members of the Valley of the Ban, who are doing much more than just complaining about it. They're actually fighting back. And Gavin McInnes is one of those types of people, definitely at the forefront of trying to hold these censors accountable. That's where the hashtag Fight the Censors comes from. So I hope you'll tune in tomorrow. Hope you would enjoy this, and make sure to share it widely. Take care. See you tomorrow.